Hi there, you're on with MushroomObsession.com. I'm Larry Short. It's chanterelle season here in the Northwest, and so for the last couple of days we've been talking about the amazing, untamable golden chanterelle. We're talking about how to hunt for it, how to harvest it, how to prepare it in the kitchen, how to save excess quantities so that you can enjoy it later on throughout the year. So those are the things that we've been talking about. Right now, today we're going to look at a recipe for cream of chanterelle soup, one of my favorite things to do with the chanterelle mushroom. And best prepared fresh. We don't have any fresh chanterelles at the moment. We're going to go get some tomorrow. But I do have some chanterelles that we've prepared using a couple of methods for storing them. One is dehydrated and then recently rehydrated chanterelles. If you were with us earlier, I showed you how to dehydrate them and how to soak them for 24 hours in water to rehydrate them. They are not nearly as nice as fresh chanterelles. They're much thinner, lighter. They don't reabsorb the liquid. But we're going to try those in cream of chanterelle soup. I think they'd probably be good. We also will probably try our frozen and thawed chanterelle mixture, which in a previous video what I did with this is made a base chanterelle recipe, which I call Chanterelle Shazam. It's on allrecipes.com, and you can get there from our website, MushroomObsession.com. It's got shallots in it, garlic, oil, a little bit of sweet wine sherry. You can eat this by itself as a side dish with rice, chicken, steak, fish, whatever, or you can use it as a base for soup. So today we're gonna try some as a base in soup. We're gonna make soup two different ways, and then we'll compare and see how it turns out. What I've done in preparation for making the soup, I'm heating up my cast iron skillet over here. I'm going to add, feels like it's getting warm, I'm going to add about 1.5 tablespoons of olive oil to it. This is in preparation for using the rehydrated chanterelles in our soup mixture. So 1.5 tablespoons roughly of olive oil goes in there. At this point, normally I would add shallots. I'm out of shallots at the moment. I used them all up when I was making my chanterelle Shazam. So I've chopped some onions. I'm going to add a small handful, probably a couple tablespoons of onion to this mix. And if you can't use shallots, if you have to use onion, I recommend not using Spanish onion because it has a bit of a bite, but using a sweet onion or a white onion. I'm using Walla Walla sweet onions from Eastern Washington. They, I think, go well in this dish. And also chopped garlic. So I've chopped up about 1 tablespoon of garlic, which is plenty. Probably wouldn't need that much. Actually, I should have saved up that from my other. Well, I've got garlic in the other mixture already, so we'll put lots of garlic in it. And I also have a bunch of chives here. I'm going to save those as a garnish for the top. The thing about chanterelle soup, when you serve it, you want to put a nice little garnish on the top of it that's got some texture, some crunch, and some flavor right there, maybe with a little sour cream. And it will taste really good. So we're sauteing our garlic mixture. It's going to, we're going to basically cook that until the garlic and the onions are limp, not too long, in the olive oil. And we are going to add our chanterelles. So these are the chanterelles we rehydrated from a dehydrated state the other day. I'm going to use all those. They should be chopped up in pieces, and some of these are whole, so I'm going to make sure I don't have any really large chunks in here. Smallish chunks are okay, but we're going to if it's a whole chanterelle like that, we're going to about quarter it. Chop these up. I'm kind of running through and looking for some larger pieces in here, make sure those get cut up well. For the soup, we're going to reserve a little bit of this to use for the garnish on top after we've cooked it. Make sure you don't do that before you cooked it, because this has been dehydrated and rehydrated but not sterilized. And any wild mushroom like chanterelle that you harvest, you're going to want to make sure it's good and sterilized before you eat it, because most people are sickened by eating the germs that they find on wild mushrooms rather than the mushrooms themselves. My material's starting to brown there, so I'm going to go ahead and add the chanterelle mixture. Now I mentioned that if you're using fresh chanterelles, they will bleed water. These chanterelles have been dehydrated, rehydrated, they have very little water in them. They have some, but very little. So we're going to see. It's a little bit experimental for me because I've never made soup from rehydrated chanterelles. I'm seeing a few large pieces in here that I want to probably recut. Not too many. Okay, so while that's sauteing, I'm going to open some chicken stock, chicken broth. My wife doesn't like sodium. I love sodium, but she doesn't care for it. So we buy the low sodium, 33% less sodium chicken broth by Swanson's. We're going to need 3.5 cups of it for this mixture, quite a bit. And I actually may try substituting in some of the broth that came off the rehydrated mushrooms, because that has got good flavor in it as well. Before we add this, however, we're going to add a dash of flour. I forgot my flour. I'm going to be right back. Just white flour, about 2 teaspoons, and that's going to go on the chanterelle mixture as soon as those chanterelles are done. We're going to stir that up, see how they're doing. I can start to smell them. They smell good. But no real liquid coming off of them here, so I don't really expect there to be any. They will continue to soften, I hope, and as we create this cream of chanterelle soup mixture. Alright, so let's see, I'm going to measure out my chicken stock while we're working on that. The other thing we're going to put in here is either heavy cream, whipping cream, or in my case, since I want to go a little light, I use half and half as a substitute. Would be creamier and tastier if you used heavy cream, but people my age, we got to kind of watch our health, so we do other things. So one of these cans is about 2 cups of broth. We're looking at about 3.5 cups. I'm going to make up the difference. It's a little shy of 2 cups, so I'm going to make up the difference with some of my chanterelle liquid. Right here. I'm just going to get some I can kind of dip in and dip that out with. I'm going to add some of that chanterelle broth, chanterelle liquid to that. I'm also saving that for other purposes. That's just a little over 2 cups there. So we will add that as soon as the chanterelle mixture has had a chance to saute a bit. Keep stirring it, make sure the onions don't burn on the bottom. A little browning is okay. Like I say, there's very little moisture, if any, coming off those mushrooms. So I think the sooner we add the liquid to it, the better off we're going to be. And before we do, like I said, we're going to add about 2 teaspoons of flour. That's going in right now. I'm going to sprinkle it across the top of that mixture. 1, 2. That will help thicken up and give a nice consistency to that soup. And then once the flour is in there, you're going to want to kind of stir it around. You'll see it thicken, coat the pieces, and it will absorb the oil. Oil is now gone as a result of that. And you want it to heat up just a little bit before you add your chicken stock. Alright, so get it nice and coated and stirred around. I can see my onion in there and my garlic. Lots of chanterelle pieces. Now, remember, we were going to reserve a little bit before we add the liquid and just set it aside for using later with the garnish. So I'm going to just take a good, make sure I get some onions with it too. Take a couple spoonfuls of this mixture. And I should have done that before I added the flour. It's not going to make a whole lot of difference though. Alright, so I got a little bit reserved there. I'm now going to open my other can of chicken broth and be prepared to add that to make up the difference. I have 2 cups, I need 3.5. So I'll add about 1/2 of a can of this to this mixture as well. Okay, here we go. In goes the liquid. My heat has been medium-low. I'm going to turn it up at this point a little bit to make sure I get a nice steady boil going on that. And we need a little bit more. About We had 2 cups, we need 3.5, so we're going to need about 1.5 cups. I'm going to leave it a little bit shy, like I said, about half this can, and then make the difference with the chanterelle liquid. So I want to make sure it has a nice chanterelle flavor in addition to the base flavor that the chicken stock provides. Okay? That's going in. We've got our heat turned up. We'll let that simmer a bit. And I'm going to prepare my half and half. The other thing I'm going to do at this time while I'm waiting is work on that garnish. So I set aside some of the mushrooms and onions. These mushrooms now are not sufficiently chopped for the purposes of the garnish, so I'm going to actually take the mushrooms out of here that have been cooked slightly now, sufficiently to ensure that, you know, we're not going to have any problems with them. I'll take the big pieces out, I'll leave the smaller pieces in there. We're just going to chop them up and prepare them for a garnish. The main issue here, there's a flavor issue, but there's also mostly a visual issue of serving the soup with a little bit of garnish on top, which looks pretty. So that will help things out a lot. Chop, 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 chopping up there. I'll return it, and I will add, I chopped up a goodly amount of, this is my homegrown chives I picked out of my garden. Pick a bunch of them, chop them with scissors, so I have a lot of chopped chives. I'm going to add about half of that mixture in or so with my garnish. I'm going to save the rest of it for the other batch of soup that I cooked with the thawed, frozen then thawed chanterelles. So basically now we've got a pretty garnish that we can add on top of individual bowls of soup. Probably put a dollop of sour cream on there and then add the garnish on top of the dollop, and that will be pretty. Okay, one other thing that we're going to want to do as soon as we get this to a boil is taste it and try to gauge how much salt and pepper we want to add. And I forgot to add my splash of wine, so this is a good time. I can do that now. I should have added it probably earlier and reduced it, but I'm going to go ahead and add just a couple of tablespoons of white wine. I like a nice cheap 2-buck Chardonnay. Love Chardonnay. Great flavor. Kind of a woodsy flavor that goes well in wild dishes like this. So that's in there. Okay, now also has a really good smell. Okay, and we're going to, as I mentioned, as soon as it boils, we're going to take a taste and just gauge kind of how much salt we'll need to add to the soup. It will be cut a little bit once we add the cream, of course, but I know we'll need to add some salt and pepper, so I'll probably go ahead and get that started at this point. I always use ground pepper, whole peppers ground. As well as salt that does not have iodide in it, so rock salt, Himalayan pink salt is my favorite because it's got nice minerals in it and it's pretty. We'll add some salt to it there. And I know because the chicken stock is fairly low salt that I'm going to need some salt. But the purpose of this is flavor, so basically that's now nice and hot, close to a boil, not boiling yet, but close enough. I'm probably pretty safe to take a taste and just gauge the salt needs. That's starting to taste good, needs a little bit more salt. And pepper. Plus that will have some cream in it, so it'll need even more than that. Okay, I'm going to go check something. I'll be right back. You watch that for me if you would. All right, thank you. I was checking the time on my simmer. I was trying to remember, I thought it was 20 minutes, but they say actually simmer it for 30 minutes. So I'm going to turn my heat down at this point so that there's no danger in that flowing over. After simmering, we're going to add our half and half into it. Let it simmer just a little bit more with half and half in it. Keep stirring it frequently so the bottom doesn't do anything bad on this pan. And then we are going to, when we're ready to serve it, we're going to pre-warm some of these. I'm going to just use bowls like this, pre-warm it. Pour it in, ladle it into the bowls after it's cooled a bit, suitable for serving, and then add our garnish with sour cream and a little bit of this mixture we created. So I'm not going to make you sit here for the whole half hour while I do this, but I will come back, and when it's ready to garnish, we'll do the cream and the garnish, and I will check back in with you then, okay?